Hi guys, Neil here from Active Performance. So the first couple of weeks we've spoken through how to create a calorie deficit and also what types of food in terms of macronutrients we should be trying to aim for. And then this week we're going to try and talk through what different meals we can actually have and different foods we can have for those meals, which will help us reach these targets. So just some key points to start off really. We want to make sure that we're focusing on homemade food because then we can control the ingredients in each meal. So rather than selecting ready meals, can we batch cook some food and possibly put it in the fridge or put it in the freezer for a later date so you know exactly what's gone inside it. Controlling our portion sizes as well, quite a simple move that we can do just to try and reduce our calorie intake a little bit. So having to think about trying to eat a little bit less there. Staying hydrated, which we always talk about because sometimes we feel hungry but we're actually thirsty, so just trying to stay hydrated and also fill up with vegetables and salad because they're really low calorie but they're going to increase our feelings of fullness. If you do fancy something naughty or you do know that you're going out for a meal and your calorie intake is going to be higher than normal, can you increase your activity levels? So if we can increase our activity levels that day, we'll be able to maintain our deficit a little bit better and just try and plan ahead. So if we know what we're eating for the day, we're more likely to stick to it. But if we don't have a plan for the day, we don't know what we're going to have for a particular meal, we're more than likely going to grab something a little bit more convenient and probably not as healthy. So starting off with breakfast. So the main issue with breakfast is a lot of people go straight for carbohydrates. So typical breakfasts include toast and jam, fruit, which seems like a great option. However, it is carbohydrate, so it will impact our blood sugar levels and we might feel hungry after that. And also cereal, especially sugary cereal. So the main thing here is trying to get some additional protein into our breakfast to increase our feelings of fullness and help the body repair. So an example here could be skyr yogurt and blueberries. So high in protein, you've got some blueberries in there as well, just for something a little bit sweet, but also some vitamins and minerals in there as well. So it's going to increase your feelings of fullness and it's a lot lower on the carbohydrate levels. If you do have time to make eggs on toast is a great example there. It's going to give you some fats. As you can see, there are some saturated fat in there, but a lot of good fats in there. So it is a little higher on the calorie intake. However, it's got some good fats in. And then if we keep it with one slice of bread, it will keep the carbohydrates down as well. And that should also really increase our feelings of fullness and keep us going until lunchtime. And then another option here is something called overnight oats, which is basically kind of like cold porridge. So you use porridge oats and you can put anything inside it. Milk, we've got an example there of a milk alternative, which is chocolate Alpro. You could pop bananas in there, nuts in there. Just remember that the nuts will be a little higher on the calories, but that's going to give us a little bit of extra protein. We pop it all together, we pop it in a container, leave it in the fridge overnight, and the oats will soak up the milk or the milk alternative, and then it's ready to go in the morning. So then you're prepared for the day and you can start the day well. So moving on to some lunch alternatives. So soup is a great place to start if you did want to try and keep your calorie intake down because it's quite a high quantity of food. However, it's quite low on the calories because a lot of it will be made up of water. So if you are a meat eater, you could have something like a chicken soup, which would help increase your protein levels. If you're not, then possibly something like a 3-bean or a chili soup, which again is going to increase those protein levels and give you some additional fiber as well. So feels like a high quantity of food, but does come out as quite low calories there, which is excellent. Another example could be an omelette. So really low carbohydrates there. Obviously, just trying to consider what type of thing we're popping in there. So how many eggs we're using. We can put some protein sources in there, some vitamins and minerals from some salad and vegetables, but then just be careful on how much cheese we're popping in there. But again, it's going to get our protein intake up high. It's going to really fill us up. Just need to be careful on the type of things we pop in there as well. And then finally, an example here is a wrap. So again, meat option could be chicken, ham, anything like that. Non-meat could be hummus. But the good thing about the wrap is it's going to keep the carbohydrate levels quite low. As we've spoken about, carbohydrates are important. So we do need them in our diet. We need them for energy, but we do tend to overeat on carbohydrates and don't burn them off. So if we try and keep our carbohydrates a little bit lower, then they're less likely to get stored. So rather than having thick cut sliced bread, which is going to make up the majority of our sandwich, we could possibly use a wrap and then really fill it with some protein sources, non-protein sources, salad, and that's going to fill you up a lot more and keep those carbohydrates intake low. And finally, moving on to some evening meals. So a good example to start off with could be a stir fry, if you do like stir fries. So we can pop in loads of vegetables there, which is going to really fill us up, give us some good vitamins and minerals, and then we can reduce the carbohydrates a little bit because our plate will be so full of the vegetables. So we could have that with chicken, prawns, chickpeas, depending on if you're a meat eater or not, which is not a problem. Other sources we could have, thinking about getting some fish into the diet, so getting some healthy fats in there. So salmon is a very good option here. We could give that a little bit of flavour with some light bit of sweet chili sauce, which isn't going to be too unhealthy. It's just going to make the meal a little bit more interesting. And then also what's getting quite popular now is bunless burgers or bunless vegan burgers. So again, we're just trying to keep that carbohydrate intake low. So you're getting a good hit of protein from the burger, you're getting some vitamins and minerals from the salad, but then we're keeping that calorie intake and carbohydrate intake lower by not having the bun. So that's something to think about. And then you've got your good stereotypical meat and 2 veg. Again, if that's the type of thing you like to eat, can we have more of the meat and the protein on the plate and more of the vegetables to really fill us up and try and reduce that intake of the carbohydrates that we typically overeat on? So reducing the potatoes, if you're having bread, pasta, rice, all of that kind of stuff that's really easy to cook and it's very cheap, can we try and reduce those levels a little bit to keep our calorie intake down? And then finally, just moving on to some snack ideas, guys. So as you can see in the top right hand corner there are protein shakes and bars available. However, they are supplements. We want to try and get our protein intake from natural sources if we can. However, if your protein intake is low, that could be an option. Nuts and nut butters are good. We could pop them on things like banana or apple, so we're still getting those vitamins and minerals in rather than putting it on a biscuit, for example. But we just need to, again, be careful of our portion size because of the fat quantities in those. However, it is good fats. Skyr yogurt, we've already mentioned, so really good quantity of protein in there, really low on fat and slightly low on sugar as well. Not as much sugar as a lot of the other leading yogurts out there. The 10 calorie jellies are quite handy to keep close if you did fancy something sweet. They are actually quite big and they're really low in calories, so that's going to help with your overall calorie intake. Again, if we do fancy something sweet, could we possibly grab some fruit rather than a biscuit, for example? So it's going to have a lot more benefits. It is a lot slower releasing on the carbohydrates, so it's going to benefit us throughout the day. Hummus is also a good example, high in fiber, high in protein. We could pop some carrot sticks or some cucumber in there as well. So we're not having more carbohydrates with it. We're getting it from other sources, which is lower calorie. And then also a lot of the supermarkets now do have these healthy choice ready meals. So they're a lot more balanced. They have more protein, more vitamins and minerals inside them. So we could have some of those in the fridge and grab one of those rather than grabbing a takeaway or something like that. Thanks again for joining me, guys. So next week, we're going to be talking through some tips and tricks, which is going to help us reduce our calorie intake and hopefully increase that calorie deficit to help you achieve your goals.